Thanks. Check out the order. Yeah, it's a pleasure to come up here, and I wasn't ready for this, but I had this thought. Maybe it'll ask me to chair sometime at this meeting. And so it's been for me a long time coming. I chair all kinds of other meetings, and yeah. So my story starts in Long Island, New York, where I come from. I came into um, a Matt Talbot Center on Johnson Avenue over by MacArthur Airport on Long Island, where I come from, in a little hamlet called Bohemia. And so I was directed by a police officer. I call it a low level blue light special. So I was doing something I wasn't supposed to do. And the police officer responded and said, "Do you have $25 in your pocket?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, then," he said, I'll do you a favor. Uh, you can just take this court date, and then you can follow me to this Matt Talbot Center." And I never knew about AA at all. I thought it was for people not like me. That's all. I didn't think I belonged. So I had a truck full of electrical tools, and I just followed, and I was just always doing my own thing, and it was tough to stay employed, but that's because had these secrets, right? Getting loaded and not talking about it. And they started adding up. But I got to what shocked me was that I followed him. He went this way, and it was at 3 ways to leave. And I thought, wow, guy's pretty cool guy. He's going to let me leave. So I should automatically I usually, my way was to just leave, go the other way, right? And just, repeat what I've been doing. But I went in there and I woke up to a new reality, which saved my life. It's called Alcoholics Anonymous. And I met some new friends. I was going through different sober houses, and I did everything they told me I shouldn't do. Like one sober house, uh, actually, because, well, I'll say this first. I went in there, and it's basically you go in there and you get a treatment plan. They suggest it, or or you can just suffer some more and come back and accept one of them, right? And the deal was that finally rang my bell, but I did something that appealed to me. Just take my time and use it to get my batteries charged up. And then finally, I found the bottom bad enough, and I started to realize when I went to the AA meetings and the NA meetings while I was there, about the fourth or sixth time, I was able to accept their treatment plan. And I went to CK Post, and it was a 28-day program. And as soon as I was done with it, they said, "Would you like to live in a halfway house and save all your money, get a job?" And I thought to myself, that's ridiculous. It's amazing that I just made it through this 28 days. And I'll say this, I'll tag this on. One of my sisters and my brother-in-law, some years before, which is less than 10 years, I can't even remember exactly, but they took me to this Apple program, which is a behavioral facility. And I toured the place, and I thought, I'm not going to go in that. I'm not going to go in that place, this place here. But I asked what the gazebo is. I can't even pronounce it. Gazebo, excuse me, was in the back, and they were smoking cigarettes. And I saw this building, big giant building, on the Brentwood campus. They had different state buildings in there. Everything's tore out of there, from what I believe. But I found out that was a 28-day program from somebody. And I said, I'll just go to the 28-day program. And that's how I ended up uh, just putting things together and going there. I went 3 times in 4 years. I went in there in 97, 98, and I think it was 2000. and I couldn't get a grasp on what these steps were all about. So I was doing it like I've heard tell, cafeteria style. I figure, well, I love church. I haven't been there in years. I'll do step three, or I'll just do step one. And then I heard this after a while. It came to me that you're just two stepping, right? Because I learned to listen to learn a little bit better. And and I just started to wake up to who I was and who I wasn't. And then I got a sponsor, and we did this old school way in his kitchen. And he said, you can write down anything you want about what you we're going to talk about. And he basically saved my life. I wanted the Jimmy the cop from this place. I thought I needed somebody to be tough on me the way it was when I was growing up with my pop. And And this guy, Charlie, had given me a ride there. I met him in a sober house, and he said, he yelled across the room, you already got a sponsor. And I said, wow, I didn't know that. I'm the last one to know a lot of stuff in Alcoholics Anonymous, I thought, but I'm no different than a lot of other people. Like most people, we're all doing the same thing and moving in the same direction, hopefully, right? And then I realized, wait a minute, these people are genuine. They really like to help. They want to help. And then I started reading it in the literature, and I started to, every time I open up the book to read it, something different came out at me. And I thought to myself, what a gift. This is something that I better stay on board with. But the ism popped up out of nowhere, right? I have a disease that centers in my mind that tells me I don't have a disease. So that messed with me because I couldn't be 100%. And I found out I have to be. Step one, first of all, the first word is we. And then that we turned into I got to stop drinking, right? And then it's a two-part step, right? And then my life is unmanageable. It was a no-brainer that my life was unmanageable. And I went to a book study I was sent to go by my sponsor, my first sponsor, Charlie. And he went to GA. He was a short Italian guy. They called him Pino. And he was a gambling addict. And he was he said, I came in through the back door of Task, right at the back door. And I thought, what does that talk? What does that mean? You came in because, yeah, it was a deferred prosecution, or ACOD, they call it, back in New York. Don't get in trouble for 6 months, because I had gotten in trouble. Because I was out there just running amok, had a car with a license, or vice versa, right? And I drove without insurance twice. And those things I cleaned up. But before I cleaned them up, I was in that Matt Talbot Center. I mean, not the Matt Talbot Center, the CK Post Treatment Center. And I had 4 or 5 warrants for driving. And I was out just doing what I wanted to do, afraid. I became afraid. I was running from the law. I got in trouble, had a fantastic probation officer, and she asked me things like, when I went in there, she said, she never piss tested me, urine tested me. And I said, at Christmas time, she asked me, do I need to, send this in? So um, I said, well, yeah, you don't have to send it in. She said, we can save $10. And then it was dirty, because I was trying to think, was it 2 or 3 days and before I used drugs, right? Drugs is a big part of my story, but I always needed alcohol first. So I don't think I have a lot of time here. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit. Some years that went by, I couldn't get 1 year sober. I realized that I did silly things, like I just told myself the way my father taught me. I'm getting 30 days. And everybody said, what are you talking about? Nobody can say they're going to get 30 days. I said, I'm getting 30 days. And then I got 30 days. And then I drank. I celebrated it. And just like my father, he taught us. He was just self-willed, run riot in different ways in life. But he was a hard guy to work with. But I love him. I love him like a brother. We became good friends. And yeah, but anyway, I lost my train of thought there. But the fact of the matter was, I couldn't put time together after a while because my ego was so, I didn't realize. I, I, I was just lost. Every time I went out, I had to restart again. So I found this bottom that I didn't know existed, which was just, I was bankrupt physically, mentally, uh, the whole deal, whatever you want to call it, right? And I needed help. And I was going to this place. I was going to, thanks. The I was going to this lighthouse mission, and I was just cleaning up all the time. I kept cleaning up. I didn't know what to do, but I knew I was supposed to do stuff that I did that I was taught by my father, help the neighbors, uh, and like we would help different people in the neighborhood. He would fix anything for them if they couldn't afford it. Do what your aunts do every time you moved. You know, one of my aunts had furniture and she used to take it from the church and sell it for the church. And I realized that I come from a pretty darn decent family. Seven of my uncles were in World War II. My father was in Korea, and we were just talking about the military. And I went to go in the Marine Corps when I was 18. I figured, oh, I could try this. And then I was clowning around and did some shoplifting with my girlfriend and my buddy and his girlfriend. Dove in the snow, and I was drunk and being a fool, acting out. And when I went there, I put my hand up at AFES in New York City, and he said, "Wakefield, you got a $50 fine to pay. Sergeant Ortega, take him back to Long Island and get this paid and bring him back." And I went back home and I decided I'm not going in the military. I'm going to go to school. I went and got my GED, and I just felt like I didn't even need an education because I knew how to fix and do things. And then I realized, wow, you live in a small world. Your father had brought us up that way, right? He wanted us to learn things. And I used to go out on a tow truck with him, doing different things. He had a couple tow trucks. He had a gas station when I was a kid. And he taught me how to fix anything. And I learned how to do construction work, plumbing, just like we were talking about before. A lot of guys in my neighborhood learned all the trades so you could build your own house, plumbing, HVAC. I did with some guys and I thought, this is a nice deal. But I was enabling myself. Like one sober house, they said, don't go in that suicide room. Sleeping in there by yourself is good. You're going to be by yourself. You need a roommate. We're going to give you a chance. Do you want the suicide room? I said, yes, I'll take that. And I wanted to prove them wrong, but I got in trouble and I get cut doing things, or I got in a fight. I was left for dead. I didn't even want to get in a fight. I was trying not to argue with these guys, and they just kept just pushing my buttons, and I ended up in silly. I was making poor decisions, and I'll say that I'm grateful that when I called my brothers, two brothers up, my brother who lives here, Gregory, called my brother Jimmy back in Long Island, and he said, my brother Jimmy answered the phone. I said, there's a lot of people dying in this flop house over here. Back when we had payphones, right? And I said, you know what? I got to do something different. I wanted to go to treatment, but they said, my brother pulled up. He said, stay there. He pulled up and he said, I'm going to give you $1,000. Go back to Seattle. Go back to Seattle with Gregory. You can pay me back when you get on your feet. Because he knew I could just make money and was pretty good at it, but I wasn't doing anything other than just looking for the next debacle, for lack of better terminology. But my time is winding down here. I'm going to say I've been treated very well here in Seattle. And I learned things that when I got here, I wanted to tell people, you're doing it the wrong way. And I realized that there's many different paths to the same destination. And all people are genuine. It's just I had to learn how to say things in a particular way where they said, if you scare somebody, you just messed your life up, right? You messed the beginning of this relationship up. But I learned how to control myself and be composed and be able to actually want to come up and talk in front of people, even though it's a small crowd. But I appreciate the time. Good to see you guys here. You guys are my family in AA anywhere I go. So Seattle's been real good to me. I can't even say how much I appreciate you guys taking these seats and, sharing your experience, strength, and hope.
If you leave 5 minutes, then I can have Jeffrey rebuttal.
I told you that in spotlight. Thank you. Thank you. What's your name? Well, Steve. Thank you, Steve. And that's a sort of an exaggerated introduction because I really don't deserve much of the praise that I think it's a running joke with us that he says he saved my life. I saved his life. But in effect, he saved my life. And people like Jeffrey here and other Nancy and many, many others, too many to mention, saved my life. And through the grace of God, I was able to recreate my life and I'm here today because I wouldn't have been had I continued on the path I was on. I want to thank Chuck. Chuck, those were some inspiring words. Thank you very much. And I guess I'll start out with my story here a little bit. I was raised in a family that I grew up on Queen Anne Hill. And I was raised in a family of, there were 5 children, 3 boys and 2 girls, and a Catholic family. Went to Catholic school on Lower Queen Anne at Sacred Heart School. My mother was a registered nurse, a very good registered nurse, and she raised us quite well and was a loving mother. But at the age of 10, my father passed away. So it was a tremendous burden on her to raise us 5 kids. But she managed to do it. And I think we were sort of like a middle-class family, not poor, really. I went to parochial school. I didn't really lack for anything. But somehow I started drinking, and it became sort of the number one thing in my life, especially when I was a kid. I can remember 12, 13 years old underneath the overpass on the boulevard, drinking quarts of beer with my buddies. And for a long time it was working. And then it started to not work. And I got progressively to the point where it wasn't working at all. And by the time I got to AA in 1988, it was, I was pretty much toast. I would have been, probably dead probably by an accident or somebody shooting me or something. In the course of all those years, I was an angry drunk, and when I'd get enough beer or whatever in me, didn't matter. I like to fight. I was one of these guys who'd get angry and want to punch somebody. Although I wasn't really a fighter, but I thought I was, Muhammad Ali once I got drunk. So I'd, be in some bar and I'd get in a fight with some guy that was twice my size. And of course, usually they knock me out, or throw me out or something like that. But luckily I didn't die then. There was one time I got stabbed and spent 2 weeks in the hospital. I got stabbed in the chest. And I was yelling at the car that had gone by. They honked at me or something, and I gave them the finger. And what are you going to do about it? It's like a YouTube video you watch today, right? You see so many of these YouTube videos where people getting these ridiculous altercations with each other. So, that was another close to death experience. That didn't really, I remember asking my buddies to bring me a 6-pack when I was in the hospital recuperating, bring me some beer, not thinking, putting the 2 and 2 together. Well, eventually, not my notes. Eventually I got a DWI in 1987, I think it was. And I had an assault charge that was dismissed because the witness didn't show up. I was guilty, but they didn't show up, so it was dismissed. So I dodged that. I had a lawyer when I went to him when I got this DWI in Ellensburg, in Kittitas County. I went to the lawyer and I said, "Hey, can you get me off?" And I actually at that time was working myself in the court system. I was a court clerk. So I knew a little bit about, DWIs and how they work. I said, well, the cops didn't read me my rights and they wouldn't let me use the phone. And when I used the phone, they were in the room and the cops had made some mistakes. And I said, well, can you get me off? He said, Danny, I could probably get you off, but that's not what you need. You need to stop drinking because this is a big problem. And, the light went on sort of faintly. It said, maybe he's right. Maybe this is really my problem. And my life was shit, pretty much, working and getting drunk and every weekend and, waking up hungover and wishing I was dead. And this was sort of the, place I was at. So that was a good thing that lawyer did, to tell me that. So I went into a deferred prosecution program where I had to go to treatment. And I think I met Jeffrey in treatment, right? Yeah, I went to an outpatient treatment program, and I think it was called New Beginnings.
No, Monday Alternatives.
What was it called?
Monday Alternatives.
Monday Alternatives. So we went. I think the counselor eventually ran off of one of the patients, but but it was because he was funny. We started to get into the Big Book workshop with Emmett, the notorious Emmett Osborne, and Jeffrey would come to me and he'd go, "I've been going to this workshop, and these guys, really seems like he knows what he's talking about. I can't explain it to you exactly, but you should come and listen and blah blah blah." And I said, "Oh, you're crazy. I can do it myself. I want to do the Frank Sinatra method. I did it my way." And so eventually I did go. And Emmett had what we came to know as some tremendous depth and weight to what he said. He explained the craving to me, the physical allergy. You take one drink, and of course that drink takes another drink, and pretty soon you've had 24 beers, then you're in Vancouver, Canada or somewhere. You break out in spots, as they say. So that explained a lot of how I acted. I said, well, God, if I have this physical allergy, that explains a lot of things. And I certainly had it. And I think if you do have it, then it's easy to see. It's not, well, maybe it's not easy to see. It was easy to see for me. So, like I say, what he said had lots of depth and weight. It made sense. He would he would say things. Emmett was quite a gregarious fellow, and he would say things that were quite funny. And Jeffrey and I and other people in the group. Steve was there around there. We would laugh a lot. We'd laugh at each other. There was a lot of laughter and, sort of self-degradation of each other. And, how many fingers do you see? This kind of thing. And this, when somebody new would come in, it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun, and we felt we were onto something. The message of Depth and Weight was important, though. That taking the book and explaining that program of Alcoholics Anonymous in a way that made sense. It wasn't just going to meetings and unloading, your problems of the day, which a lot of the meetings were. And so I imagine they probably still are today, where people are just kind of unloading, I feel bad, and thank you for letting me share. Now I feel better. And people come in and say, I was going to commit suicide last night, but I'm feeling all right. Say things that are sort of ridiculous. You're going to commit suicide one day, and then you're feeling all right. It's not how it works. But I got into studying things like, Dr. Bill Wilson's experience with Carl Jung, and that kind of interested me, the metaphysical part of it, and what Jung said about having to be in a crisis in your life before you really look at what's going on, and look within yourself and see that you are the one that's causing most of these problems in your life. It's not others. We're projecting all of our shadows, as they say, as Jung would say, on other people. It's their fault. If he did it, my wife, she's a bitch, blah, blah, blah. Nobody understands me. And really, that's all about yourself. Those are your demons, not their demons. So that was an insight. It was very interesting to me. There was a series on TV. I mean, this might sound sort of a understatement, but there was a series on TV with Joseph Campbell at that time. And I still think it's still available on YouTube, where he was talking about, the metaphysical and archetypes and all this kind of stuff. And this just fascinated me. So it helped me see sort of the spiritual aspect of my being, that I had a spiritual aspect. And in order to overcome my unmanageability, which is what I was like when I was sober, I needed to access spiritual power. I mean, this is fun. It's not just AA, it's fundamental in life. It goes beyond AA. AA just sort of, as they say, wrote the steps so that, they're numbered for the intellectuals. In other words, these are steps people go through to bring about a spiritual experience. And certainly I had one, the quality of which was debatable, but the point is that it removed the obsession with alcohol, and it made me a useful individual. I returned to usefulness. And I saw also my faults in the fifth step, especially. I saw that my character had many flaws. Like many humans, we all are flawed people. The problem is we think we aren't. And, some are more flawed than others, of course, but the point is that you need to see that. You need to see the balance, so that when you go out in the world, you treat people the way you would want to be treated, and you don't get in all these conflicts. Now you're human, so you're gonna regress once in a while. So you need to be sharp, and you keep reading, keep meditating, keep contact with the spirit. I can't say enough about the camaraderie we had in the early days of AA here, when I got so early days of my AA experience. And I think I got sober in '88, and I think what was the convention was 91,
90.
90. So 2 years later, they had the international convention in Seattle. And you could literally get on the bus in the morning when I went to work and it was full of people and from the AA going to a meeting at the Kingdom or somewhere, and they were all talking program. And we were just full of it. We were just, on fire with this stuff. And we're going to meetings, almost every day, at least 2-3 times a week, and workshops and meetings were starting and people were getting sober and having profound experiences, even though we really didn't realize it at the time. Steve was there, Nancy was there, and I said Jeffrey was there, and a lot of it was just fun. We just were having fun. I mean, we were a little confused and a little full of ourselves, and then we went through sort of an evangelistic stage where we thought we found the truth, and if you didn't believe us, we were gonna beat you over the head with our big books. But the fact of the matter is we calmed down after some time, and we kind of saw the truth more, or understood the truth. So, how much time do we have? So, okay, is that
Countdown.
okay? 5 minutes.
That's 14 minutes.
14.
15 minutes.
I got 14 minutes left.
13:59.
Geez, yes.
Time to start talking about me.
Okay, yeah.
Start talking about Steve. and
Okay,
Yeah,
I got to tell you
Be free.
funny stories. The funniest story I told, everybody seemed to enjoy, and I'm sorry for you've already heard it, but my brother was a cop, a Seattle cop, and he was a sergeant in the Seattle Police Department, and he was in charge of sort of the Queen Anne area, but that's part of downtown, Belltown, Queen Anne. So one night I came home drunk. I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. It actually was a Murphy bed. So me and the cockroaches, and I was real drunk, and I passed out in the hallway in front of my apartment door. So the manager came up there, who didn't like me very much. Can't understand why. And he started, kind of hassling me, and I got in my apartment and I started, look, you, what do you think you are? And, I was kind of having a little temper tantrum over this confrontation from the landlord. So I started I threw my television set out the window. I was on the second floor. I threw it out the window into the courtyard, and I was yelling, fuck you. Another one of those, if they had a YouTube, it would have been on there, in those days. So they call the cops, right? So guess who shows up? My brother shows up. And I'm up there, look, you guys, come up and get me. I'm Mr. Tough Guy. And I hear my brother's voice, which was distinct. He said, hey, Danny, it's Al, your brother. I went, oh, shit. He goes, come on out. You can go live with Mom. I was, a minute before that, I was, come on, you guys. I'm ready to die. So, put me in my place. So I did go live with Mom. Anyway, for a while. I don't know. There's lots of stories like that near misses. I'm trying to think of some right now. Let me see here. Oh, I don't know. I used to drive I'd get drunk and I'd always go Eastern Washington because I had many relatives over there, like kind of, the cowboys. I thought I was a cowboy. And I'd go over there and I'd show up. I actually once paid a cab driver to drive me over there. After the bars closed here, I got in the cab and take me to Ellsberg, and he goes, well, I don't know if you can afford it, so I'll give you $100. just stop and get a 6-pack of beer at the 7-Eleven or 6-pack for my kid myself. Let's go get a case of beer and we'll go over east of the mountain. So I went over there and I'd get over there, 6:30. And the bars wouldn't even be open there, but I'd wait till they opened, then I, start drinking over there. So my relatives got kind of used to this, and they thought it was quite funny. And they, I don't know, I was just sort of out of my mind when it came to drinking and doing goofy things. So there's many stories which don't, it's been 36 years. I'm trying to forget. No, the many stories of crazy nonsense things I did when drunk. A lot of stories about fighting, people that were going to beat the shit out of me. And one night I was in the Blue Moon Tavern, and I got in a fight, and the guy threw me out the door. And you know where the Blue Moon is there on 45th? He threw me into the street, like into the middle of the street. And I mean, I'm in traffic, right? I mean, I come out the door into the middle of the street, and my buddy came out there and he said, "Danny, what are you doing?" I said, "Come on, let's get these guys," or something like that, right? Just completely crazy. I don't know. That's kind of all I got. I'm in love with AA. It really worked for me. I have no complaints. I think people come to AA in many different ways. As Chuck was pointing out, basically it's the 12 steps. Do those 12 steps and it'll bring you in. It should bring you into a spiritual experience, which you need. Every human needs, not just drunks. Of course, it's especially good for drunks. But I mean, how many people could you think of in your life who have nothing to do with alcoholics or alcoholism who could use a spiritual experience in their life and, in civilian life? But we become sort of, we're not spirit. We think of ourselves as superhumans, or we want to be, happy all the time, or we want things that really aren't, I think, possible. You can't be happy all the time. Life has its ups and downs. But if you're prepared spiritually, I think you'll be able to deal with those ups and downs in a way. My life has has unfolded in a way that since I went into Alcoholics Anonymous, which convinces me that there's a lot of serendipity in my life where things just happened that were really good, that were sort of unexpected. And it's not because I was, any kind of a wizard in anything special. It's just, kind of surrendering to the power that really is running things. So where am I at? 7 minutes. Do you have any questions?
Yes. We got questions. Do you have can you share what maybe one of your more difficult events was?
Well, my first wife was very difficult. It's still difficult. I mean, I was a terrible father, absolutely terrible. I just sort of abandoned my wife and my 2 kids. And because I was interested in getting drunk mainly, and very selfish, extremely selfish. And when I sat down with her, it was like the doggy in the window thing, as they say, where, I basically said, I know I've done some things wrong, and what do you think about that? And then I just went like this, went around the corner and went like this. because she went on for ever, it seemed, telling me what I had done wrong. And instead of saying, but, like I would have, if I hadn't been prepared correctly, I just listened. And it was like an air coming out of a balloon, for her. She'd finally been able to tell me what a disgusting jerk I was. And I deserved it. I deserved to be humbled. And that humbling actually helped me, I think, be more human in the end. It taught me to humility, which is what I needed at that time. I don't need it now, though. So that's anybody else?
Do you have a relationship with your kids now?
I do have a relationship with one of my kids. The other one is kind of abandoned me. We got along for a while, but she decided she didn't want me in her life. Even though I had been sober for many years and made amends to her, at least thought I had made amends to her the best I could. But I know I don't blame her, come on. I don't really have a leg to stand on there. But I hope that one day, when the time is right, I'll be able to once again at least have some sort of relationship with her. The other daughter has been very accommodating, let's say, and loving to me and forgiving me, I think. So that's kind of where that stands. And I think that's normal. I mean, you can't act like the way I acted and expect your children to, just forgive you for everything. It doesn't happen, I don't think, in the real world.
Good to hear you. Good to see you back in A, Danny.
Thank you. Yeah.
I mean, you were a big part of Drunks or Us. Can you tell us just a little bit about the beginning of that? And
Well,
workshops that were.
It was basically you and I were there. We wanted to start a
And
meeting.
Romina.
And Romina, yeah. And we wanted to do Drunks or Us. We named it Drunks or Us. And that was a pretty good name, I think. And that meeting grew. It was in the upstairs in a smaller room in the Fremont Baptist Church. And then eventually it moved to the basement because you'd get 200 people every Monday was, right? And that kind of split off into Drunks or Us North and some other meetings. I think 3 or 4 meetings. What was the meeting at St. Patrick's?
By the book.
By the book, yeah.
Jay Walker.
By the book, Jay Walker. There was just a lot of meetings split off from that, and there were workshops. It was just amazing. I mean, I would go in those meetings where there were like a Drunks or Us meeting on a Saturday night up in Lake Shoreline, and you'd walk in and I'd almost break out crying from all the people there that started with this just little spark of 2 drunks trying to have a meeting. We wanted to have an Al-Anon meeting, do you remember?
Yeah.
And we were going to call it Drunks or Them.
Yeah.
That never happened. Okay. What I regret, Jeffrey, is we never wrote the AA joke book. We were we'd hear a good joke in a meeting or a speaker or something. We've got to write that down and we're going to put it in a book and we'll sell it. We'll be rich. We'll never have to work again. Of course, it never happened.
We were the joke.
Yeah.
We're still
Looks
hoping.
like. I got 1 minute and 30 seconds. One more question. Yes, sir.
I got 2 questions. One is what's your favorite story about Emmett?
About what?
Emmett.
Emmett?
And number 2 is Steve told me a story about how there was 5 or 6 people that got and went to the big reunion of Drunks R Us.
No,
And nobody got-
it was the last meeting at Fremont.
And nobody got picked. They couldn't even remember who the beginning people were.
But that hurt. They didn't call on you. I think the funniest story was Emmett. I was riding on Aurora one day. I don't know why I was going somewhere with Emmett. And he was driving, and I was going, I said, God, Emmett, man, how does this go? He goes, God, I'm blessed. I'm so blessed, damn it. I think God's coming in my life. He says, I'm a miracle. And he turned to me and he said, you're not a miracle, you're an asshole. So, once again, that was with him. Miracle, you're an asshole. Anyway, that's all I got, folks. Thanks for Steve for inviting me.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you, Chuck, once again.